Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another special edition of WOWSA Live. We're actually have a guest from Vancouver Island in Canada, Susan Simmons. How are you this morning?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Did you go for your swim this morning?
I have not gone this morning, but I'll be going this evening. Nice sunset swim.
Oh, okay. And when you swim, like how far do you go? Do you have a special course?
I have a few different places that I swim, tonight I'll swim in Juan de Fuca and I'll be in for an hour or two. And sometimes I swim in a pretty little private lake called Francis Lake, and I'm in there for 4 or 5 hours at a time.
Wow. And how cold does the water get in your lake and then in the strait?
Well, the lakes freeze in the winter, but right now it's probably sitting around 18 Celsius. I'm not
Okay.
sure what that is in Fahrenheit.
Uh-huh.
And the ocean sits anywhere between 8 and 13.
Okay. Okay. Well, before we get into actually your swimming career, I want to actually ask you to describe the MS, the multiple sclerosis that you live with. Can you do that for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I was about 30, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I went temporarily blind in my left eye. And after a series of appointments, with the definitive one being an MRI and the doctors finding lesions on my brain, I was diagnosed. And at the time, the doctors said, don't exercise. You'll get stressed out, you'll trigger an MS attack. And over a 10-year period, I got really sick. With MS, what happens is the coating, you have inflammation, and then the coating on your nerves deteriorates, and it crosses. It's almost like a short circuit. So over time, I got sicker and sicker. It was hard for me to even walk a block. I
Oh,
was so
wow.
exhausted all the time. I would have shivers and tingles if I would go outside in the heat. And
Wow.
I just decided you got to do something. So I started swimming as a way to manage it, and it's worked wonders.
Wow. So is swimming one of the recommended activities, or is that something you just came up with yourself?
Yeah, I kind of came up with it myself. I swam as a youth. I
Okay.
swam up until the age of 15. I was a competitive pool swimmer in Montreal. And I just kind of abandoned it. I didn't really like what competition did to me or the people around me, and thought I would never go back again. But with MS, I'm heat sensitive. So if I'm in extreme heat or I overheat, I do have MS attacks and relapses. So swimming is great, cold water swimming especially, because I'm always cooling my body.
Yeah. Wow. And then what is it just about swimming in an ocean or along the shoreline that either calms you or is really complementary to your MS?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of things. I think number one, I can exercise. And we should all exercise.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. But especially when you have a disease or some type of disability, you want to make sure that you're really being active. And it allowed me to do that without overheating. But the other thing it does for me is uh, with MS, you often have depression and anxiety and things like that, just because you just don't know. I could wake up tomorrow and not be able to see. And I find cold water swimming in particular is really good for both depression and anxiety. So it just keeps me even keeled and calm and happy. It's my happy place.
I sort of have to laugh because when I see a body of cold water, I do get depressed. I mean, I do get stressed out. Now, in your case,
The opposite,
it's the
yeah.
opposite. It's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
They tease me at the pool because it gets too warm for me at a point. Uh,
Yes.
I can't go in a public pool because it's just too hot. I got to get out.
Yeah. Okay. So you were a competitive swimmer in your teenage years, and then as you got older, you started going into marathon swimming, longer swims. What was that drive? What inspired you to go longer and colder?
Well, I started masters swimming at 40 as a way of keeping fit, and I had a fabulous coach who encouraged me and finally got me back into competition. But eventually, over a 5 to 6 year period, I kind of got bored.
Okay.
I'm just somebody who likes to try different things. I can't live in the same place forever. So there was a swim called the Fetus Lake Swim for MS, and at the time I thought, wow, there's people with MS swimming. Let me jump in with them. Only to find out that I was the only one in the water with MS.
Oh,
So
where,
they,
excuse me, where is this right?
Fetus, Fetus Lake is on Vancouver
Got
Island.
it. Okay.
It's about a 10-minute, 15-minute car ride away from me. It's a gentle lake. It's a 1.5-kilometer circuit around the lake. You're going behind islands. And I remember being terrified of the seaweed and the sea, the otters and all of that kind of stuff. But I ended up loving it. And every year I thought, let me see if I can go further and further, and would add on to the distance just as a way to keep myself active and fit.
Wow.
And
So this is around, you're in the your mid 40s, is that correct?
yeah, and it was really a combination of knowing that I needed to do something, but also curiosity. I had been told, thinking back, told don't exercise. It's bad for your MS. And I went, wait a minute, I'm getting better by exercising. I think somebody told me the wrong thing. Let me see how far I can go with this. Can I be like everybody else out there who doesn't have a disability and swim as far as they can? And, have I been misdirected? And if I have, I want other people with MS to know this.
Wow. So what are some of the improvements that you've seen due to the swimming?
Well, number one, my energy went up. When I started swimming, I used to take a 2-hour nap after, and that was just 20 lengths in a pool. Now, if I don't swim, I need the 2-hour nap. So a lot of the symptoms I have had have gone away. I don't have the fatigue. I don't get a lot of the tingling sensations in my body. There's a specific thing called kudos. When you bend forward, there's a zipper up and down your spine. That's gone away. I have been over the last 2 years, because I'm getting older. I'm 55 now. I experience some pain as the disease progresses. But I think it would be a lot worse, and I would possibly be in a wheelchair if I hadn't done what I did.
Wow. Wow. And for those in our audience who don't know of your incredible swimming background, can you give us a summary of all the swims you've done?
Yeah, so I do 3 types of swims. I do lake swims, and with that, I went from 1.5 kilometers to 70, which took me about 30 hours. I attempted a 105 twice, but wasn't able to complete it. Might go back to that. I also do ocean swims in my local community. Juan de Fuca Strait is at the end of my street. So it's easy for me to pop in there. I've swam across Juan de Fuca. I've also swam across Harrow Strait, which is right beside Juan de Fuca, and has just these insane currents in it. Relayed across the Strait of Georgia, which is right beside Harrow. So we've got 3 straits in a row that we can work in. So a lot of those ocean swims, but the other thing I do is adventure swimming in Canada's Great Bear Rainforest.
Okay.
So this is central coast of Canada, up in the Inside Passage, very remote. And I've swum over 100 kilometers up there, staged swim with lots of whales and other things.
Wow.
So
now, very many people, I mean, we think of sharks and jellyfish, but then there's the friendly creatures we see, the dolphins and the whales. What is it like to swim with the whale?
Yeah, well, at first it was terrifying. My very first time swimming up in Great Bear, I did a trial swim, and I was so afraid of the wildlife under the water. I had never seen it so plentiful. Like, that's the other thing. When you go here, it's such a beautiful environment. So it's terrifying because it's unknown. It was a humpback whale. So I was swimming up a place called Lama Pass, and something came under and pushed the water up very gently. I rose several feet and then went back down. I kind of knew. I was like, that is not a boat wake, because I knew if it was boat wake, it would have pushed me to the side.
Yeah.
I went to hide behind my kayaker, which is the most insane thing you can do, because a kayak beside a humpback is nothing. And I was terrified, and I just had this moment of and this happens repeatedly to me up in Great Bear and sometimes in Juan de Fuca with the orcas. If I can't manage this fear, I'm not going to be able to swim in these incredible bodies of water. And I just calmed myself down and convinced myself to keep going, knowing there were many other humpbacks in the water, but just kept going and swimming. And now last year I was swimming down something called Fisher Channel to Namu and Quay and the Quay River, and I had 8 humpbacks on the way. And two of them were bubble netting about 25 feet from me. So a bubble net is when the whales swim in a big circle, go around and around and around, and all the fish get sucked up in the vortex.
Oh,
Then
wow.
come up and open their mouth as wide as they can and swallow them. So the ongoing joke was that I would get caught in a bubble net.
Oh my God. I have so many questions here. I don't know where to begin. So do you hear the whales before you see them or feel the water ride?
I feel their presence. I'm very aware of their presence.
Really?
I don't hear them. I know when I've swum in Hawaii, you can hear the humpbacks there underwater.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys are just traveling their path, feeding, and sometimes my paddlers will see their spouting and cross the waterway. But the one that swam under me, he came by so quietly.
Really?
We had no idea. He was just all of a sudden was there. And then for the other ones, what they do now when I swim up there, I have an amazing crew. One of my friends I call a whale whisperer because he's able to very gently usher them away from my swim. Yeah.
How did they do that? Now there's a whole other discussion.
He just kind of goes quietly with his boat and sits there, not disturbing it too much, but letting the whale know there's something here, and the whale usually will swim away.
Wow. Now, can you see them? Is the water that clear that you?
Oh, yeah. The water is very clear up in Great Bear. It's incredible. It even tastes different than the water in Juan de Fuca. Like there's so little pollution up there. There's some sites that are contaminated, but very, very clear in the areas that I've been. Yeah.
Wow. And this bubble net, how close was it again to you?
About 25 feet away from me. And my crew didn't tell me. They kind of brought me around the corner from it. And I stopped, which totally flipped them out. So they yelled at the top of their lungs at me about my swimming and this and that. So I wouldn't hear them and become frightened. And then I just carried on and they showed me the footage after.
Wow. This is fascinating. So give us describe your crew that goes on. You said you had a wonderful crew. You know, who are the people who support your swims?
Yeah. So first off, my partner Ray, he is beside me all the time. He will not allow me to be in the water without him being present, and he also crews for me on all of my swims. My practice swims.
Okay.
In Juan de Fuca, I have a pilot, Gord Higgins. He's been sailing in the water for over 40 years.
Okay.
I use a sailboat to minimize the harm on the environment, and also because of the whales, I don't want them to be disrupted by the sound of the boat.
Oh, okay.
And then my other crew, I have a fleet of paddlers. They're all ocean canoeists. And they do other forms of paddling as well, outrigger, marathon canoeing, things like that. So Corey, Pam, MJ, Claire, that's probably, and Colette, the core crew. In Great Bear, I have Colette, who helps me navigate First Nations relationships. Okay. So in the province that I live in, a number of the areas are traditional territories of First Nations. Yeah. And it's important that I honor that it is their traditional territory. So Colette will help me seek permission to swim and film in their territories. And then we also try to interact with the community, the First Nation. So in Great Bear, it's Hallucinations. To learn from them, to learn their language. We've been able to visit the big house up in their area. And if we can get the kids in the water, we're always happy to do that as well.
Wow. Do they, have they been able to teach you anything very interesting about the bodies of water that you've tackled?
Well, one of the other crew I have up there is Don Tite, and he's Coast Guard, but he's also First Nation. I couldn't have asked for better. because he's the one that decides when and where.
Oh, okay.
Last year I was coming down a channel, crossing a channel. So it's a double channel swim.
Mhm.
And that in itself has a lot of challenges because you're being pushed down the channel, but then you're being pushed in or out of
Okay.
the other channel. And I was told I would never be able to cross the Burke. Everybody swore, you'll never cross the Burke. But it was because of Don that, and his understanding of the local area that I was able to do that.
Wow.
And then I have another guy named Kevin Hennigan, and he donates his property to me when I'm up there. And myself and my crew stay there. I would normally not be able to afford to do these things. Open water swimming's very expensive. But he really likes what I'm trying to do, and that is show people with disease that, you know, you can achieve great things, just stay healthy and get out there and live a fun life.
Yeah. Wow. And then when you, I know I followed you when you were attempting the 105 kilometer swims.
Yeah.
Can you explain those DNFs? I call it did not fail.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people call it did not fail, but I mean, you pushed the limit incredibly.
Yeah, I did. So I call it successful failure because from every failure we learn. And the purpose of my swims is not, the driving force isn't making it. It's about being in the water, being healthy, and teaching others about being healthy, but also safety. So on the 105, there were like 20 million things that went wrong on that swim. Number one, I had a lot of media around me, which was hard for me. I felt a lot of pressure. So it added to it. Normally I can handle that fairly well, but on this one I was really feeling it. So I was nervous and my stomach was nervous. One of the crew was new to it and he was doing donuts in his motorboat around the swimmers. So I sucked up a lot of gas. About 5 hours in, pardon me, I threw up the length of my kayaker twice, so 18 feet, basically a throw up. And I completely voided my stomach and I just couldn't eat. So you're 5 hours in, you have another 40 something hours to go. You're probably not going to make it, but I thought I'm going to try. I'm going to keep going because maybe I can recover. And swam through the night without eating. They gave me a bit of Gravol in the middle of the night that made me sleepy, but only half. So I was able to make it through the night, and I think I ended up doing 18 hours. I had completed about 42 kilometers, and then I thought, you know, this is bad for my body. I can feel my MS is being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't why I'm swimming. I'm not swimming to damage myself. I'm swimming to share the joy of swimming, how it's good for you, and the beauty of the environment. And so I chose to get out. I always make my own. I always try to get out before my crew calls me out. I've never had a crew call me out. Went and slept for a while, and then I jumped back in and supported a friend who was attempting 105, and I think she made it to 93, 94, and I swam beside her for about 10, 15 kilometers the next day.
Wow. Wow. So that was your first attempt.
That was the first one. And on the second attempt, again, like I just really bad stomach problems on the water. And this time that the crew they gave me a full Gravol, not realizing last time I only had half. And I fell asleep on the water over and over and over again. My partner, Ray, was with me and I could see the stress it was causing him. He was just terrified. He kept yelling at me and would wake me up over and over again. And it was heartbreaking to see what it was doing to him. So I exited. I don't want people to go through pain when they're watching me swim. Again, that's not what I'm all about. It's about positive and good. And I know we get into rough patches, but when it becomes dangerous, I prefer to try another day.
Yes. Wow. We had another discussion with people who experience hallucinations, but you literally fell asleep.
Yeah, I've fallen asleep on my 70-kilometer swim. I just nodded off while swimming, and I alerted my crew. I said, "You're going to have to keep a close eye on me. I just fell asleep." But it was in the morning, and the light wakes you up. I just had some very refreshing cantaloupe, and I was fine after that. But in the night, when you fall asleep in the water in the night, it's a very dangerous proposition. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now you took those experiences and you turned them around, and you've been on a very good streak lately.
Yeah, well, I've had some failed swims too. I mean, Harrow Strait was an amazing swim for me. What I'm trying to do now is more adventure swims, first person to swim in certain bodies of water, because I really like my crew to be challenged.
Yeah.
But Harrow Strait was, the currents there are greater than Juan de Fuca, so that was a significant one. And then the continued swim up in Great Bear Rainforest, I keep making my way down the coast and eventually want to cross from the Great Bear Rainforest and the British Columbia mainland over to Vancouver Island. So hopefully crossing the Queen Charlotte Strait. And, you know, that swim for me is really about enjoying this incredible province I live in, being with beautiful people, and all of us having an amazing time lifting one another up.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing something they like on that swim, and it's just great.
Right. What are some of your future plans?
I've got 2 this year. So the other thing I do besides swim myself is I coach. I have a group of Special Olympic athletes.
Oh, great.
And there's about 8 of them that have become what's known as the Spirit Orcas. So last year I brought them to Great Bear, and they were the first group of developmentally disabled athletes to swim a relay up there.
Wow.
They swam 20 kilometers. Yeah, and you just, wow, yeah, like these are adults that have autism, PTSD, learning delay, things like that. So think about how anxious you get when you have to go in the cold water. Just imagine them. They've already got anxiety before they even think about it. They're my heroes. This year we were supposed to go back and do another journey up there, but we can't because of COVID. We're trying to restrict travel in the First Nations communities because they're vulnerable. We don't want to bring COVID in, and they don't have a lot of hospital equipment. So we're gonna do an 80-kilometer staged swim around the peninsula at the end of Vancouver Island to raise funds for COVID. We're basically hugging our community as we swim around it. So it's our way of reaching out and giving a great big hug during COVID.
Wow. When do you estimate that this 80-kilometer stage swim will be held?
We start hopefully on July 1st, and it'll be 10 kilometers a day. There's 3 swimmers that'll do the 10K with me each day, and another 4 that will do 1 or 2 each day.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to do 8 of these 10K.
I'll be doing it all with them. I'll be with them right beside them the entire time.
Wow, yeah. That's cool. Does this stage one, do you have a website, Instagram? How can people follow you come July?
The best thing to do is find me on either Facebook or Instagram, but the easiest way to find me is just Google Susan Simmons Swim, and you'll find all of that stuff. So it's usually linked on my website. And then the other swim that I'm doing, I hope, I've got one window of opportunity, is Race Rocks to Victoria. So Race Rocks sits out in Juan de Fuca Strait. It is an ecological reserve and one of the most studied areas in the world, for not just for the ecology, but also the currents. So there's 6 knot currents that run through Race Rocks most of the time. You have to find that one little point in time where you can jump in and swim away from the rocks so that you're safe. So it's about a 20-kilometer swim, and that I'll also use to raise money for COVID, if I'm able to get in.
Wow. When might this be?
So that one is scheduled for, I believe, mid-August.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the window up in Juan de Fuca, I mean, we're not talking year round. There's a window of what you can do. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Juan de Fuca is like, people often say, oh, why don't you swim the English Channel? To me, and when I look at the 2 of them, distance is very comparable. I can't speak to the currents as much in the channel, but the currents in Juan de Fuca are crazy. Like, you really have to chart your path, and then the wind is crazy as well. There's usually 2 days every month in the summer that you can swim it if you're lucky.
Wow.
And I know when I did have the successful swim, like super lucky to have had that day, that crew, everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
But definitely challenging. And the other thing is I had attempted a double cross of Juan de Fuca. It was the year we had, I don't know if they affected you, we had all the fires, and the sky was completely smoked over, so the sun couldn't get in and heat up the water.
Oh, wow.
So normally when I swim Juan de Fuca, it's 11 degrees, 10 to 11. It was 9. And, you know, that's just too cold for me. Not for a 24-hour swim, that's a bit much. And then the air was really cold too. So yeah, you really have to pick the right time to do that particular crossing.
Yeah. Now, when you were first diagnosed with MS, they told you don't exercise. What are the words, what are the bits of advice and guidance that you can give now, knowing what you know now and knowing how either the treatment or diagnosis has advanced over the years? What would you say to a young person or any person who is diagnosed?
Yeah, I think to any person that has any disability or disease, young or old, the first thing I would say to them is that you are of value. We need you in this world. You're of value. Because when you're diagnosed, I know for myself and many others, you go into this place of, like I felt disposed of when because the doctor said, go home, relax, don't do anything, quit working, don't exercise, like you feel like you're no longer valid or valued. So my very first thing is you are of value. And I see you there. And then the second thing I would say is it's up to you. You can either let the disease take you, or you can try to live with it. We don't know what will happen to you, but you can try to live the fullest life possible while you have it. And it's about getting to understand your body, know the feelings in it. Like one of the things my crews say to me is there's nobody that understands Susan's body and how it feels better than her. When I was in Juan de Fuca on the double, I said, I'm hypothermic before my crew knew that I was. They knew I was getting there. They were watching it, but I called it because I could tell. The same with the couch in the 105. It was like, my body has had enough. So understand your body and bring it to just before that limit and then back it down and then build it up.
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day. My swimming wasn't built in a day. It took me a long time of little swims leading up to bigger ones.
Yeah. Wow. And then you behind you have it looks like a bunch of beautiful swim pictures of you in the water. Is that your sort of Hall of Fame of your?
Over there, that's my joy wall.
Okay.
My water wall. And what I've done, I also outrigger canoe and kayak. So
okay.
Up on the wall are photos of my crew and friends helping me through all the various swims that I've done.
Wow, Susan, it's been a real pleasure. We finally able to virtually meet, and you provide so much inspiration to many.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your support. Like, you've been absolutely wonderful. You get what I'm trying to do. And I really, really appreciate that.
My pleasure. You're one of the icons.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Until we meet in the real world.
Yes. Oh, swimming with the humpbacks.
There you go.